Hey there, wonderful historians. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been growing out my beard here. The reason is because we're getting closer and closer to one of my favorite time periods in U.S. history, the facial hair era, also known as the Civil War. Look at this guy's glorious facial hair. How about those? Ooh, look at those whiskers. Look at this one. I don't even know what that one is. But as we get closer and closer to the Civil War, we have to have a better understanding of what caused the Civil War. This is called a nation divided. A nation divided. And what we're trying to answer here is which events of the mid-1800s kept the nation together and which events pulled the nation further apart. What kept it together and what pulled it apart. We're going to start with a quote from Abraham Lincoln. You've probably heard of him. In 1858, Abraham Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Yeah, he actually said more than that. He said, "I believe this government cannot permanently endure half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall. But I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will be all one thing or all the other." Now, what is he talking about here? Well, what do you think the house means in his statement? Well, the house that he's talking about here is the United States, the Union, all of the states unified into one. What might be dividing this house? The issue of slavery, for sure. And what do you think Lincoln meant by the statement? Well, he's saying that a house, the nation, cannot be divided half slave and half free. It needs to be all one thing or all the other. He issued this warning to the nation 3 years before the start of the Civil War. In fact, 3 years before he was even the President of the United States. When he stated this, he was actually giving a speech as he was running for U.S. Senate. He wanted to be the senator to represent Illinois. And he was running against a man named Stephen Douglas. And in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, they talked often about slavery and whether it was moral or immoral. And in those debates, Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." All right, let's go way back in time. To really understand this, we're going to have to understand how this country confronted the issue of slavery, which we just talked about in our last topic. 1787 is when the delegates of the Constitutional Convention created the U.S. Constitution. And in 1787, the balance of the states looked like this. Here's our scale. The year is 1787. And the free states, which were the northern states, they were Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, and Rhode Island. There were 7 free states. And there were 6 slave states in the South: North Carolina, South Carolina, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and Georgia. And at this moment, the United States looked at this balance and they said, we could end slavery right now at the very beginning of this country. I mean, this country's built on land of the free, right? Well, why do I say that the United States could have ended slavery right there? Why does it even matter how many slave states and free states there are? All right, you remember the branches of government, 3 branches of government. We had the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. That's the one I want to focus on. In the legislative branch, that's where they make the laws, okay? And in order for laws to be passed, they have to pass the House of Representatives and the Senate, okay? The House of Representatives is based on population, and the Senate is an equal number of votes for each state. So you want a law passed, like for instance, abolishing slavery, you need the House of Representatives and the Senate to both agree on that, okay? Well, the Senate has 2 senators per state. That means in the free states, there would be 14 free state senators, and in the slave states, there would be 12 slave state senators. So if the Senate was voting on whether they should get rid of slavery, you would imagine that the free states would win that vote 14 to 12. Well, what about the House of Representatives? That was based on population. And the largest state by population, right here, Virginia. And so the House of Representatives actually tipped in the favor of the slave states. So if they were voting to abolish slavery, would the House of Representatives vote to abolish slavery? Most likely, the slave states would win that vote. Okay, so in 1787, they perhaps could not have actually abolished slavery. Okay, in 1787, they also created the Northwest Ordinance, and they decided we will have no slavery ever north of the Ohio River. You can see the Ohio River here. Here's the southern states. Here's the northern states. And slavery would be abolished north of the Ohio River. All right. Then 8 new states enter into the United States. Okay, 4 of them in the north, 4 of them in the south. It's going to keep the balance, right? Yeah. Oh, but the Senate is actually still out of balance. Because even when you add in these new states, so the red ones there, it is still 11 to 10 in the Senate. Okay, what about the House of Representatives? Ooh, by adding in those states, the scale tips in favor of the free states. So in the year 1818, could the United States have passed a law abolishing slavery through the Senate? 11 to 10? Yes. What about through the House of Representatives? 91 to 78 or 79? Yes. Did they? No, they didn't. So we're going to keep coming back to this issue of the scale or the balance of slave states and free states to decide whether slavery will continue in this country. And then 2 new states apply as slave states. Okay, we had our balance here of 11 to 10. 2 new states going on this side of the scale. One of them is Alabama. You can see Alabama on this map, no problem. It's located way in the south. It's surrounded by slave states. You'll get this good balance. It's going to be 11 to 11 on the scale. Okay, that's fine. But Missouri? Not so fast. There, look where Missouri is. Dead center. Is it north? Is it south? I don't know. We don't know which one that is. Okay, so what should Missouri be? Well, most of it is north of the Ohio River, right? The Ohio River comes in like this. It actually starts over here, trickles down, okay? Most of the Missouri is north of the Ohio, so it should be free, right? Not so fast, because actually the Ohio River stops right here, and then it runs south. So is Missouri actually north of the Ohio River? No, Illinois is north of the Ohio River. Missouri is west of the Ohio. All right. So Northerners in Congress, they'd be like, if Missouri joins as a slave state, what would keep slavery from spreading all the way across the Louisiana Territory? Plus, most of it is in the north of the Ohio, remember? And someone like Charles Pinckney of the South, he might say, Congress has no say in the matter. We believe in the theory of states' rights. Let the people of the state decide for themselves. So Henry Clay, a Northerner, and Charles Pinckney, a Southerner, they would be representative of what those parts of the country believed in. Okay, well, we need somebody to come along and save this travesty here. Tallmadge. James Tallmadge to the rescue. Here he comes, wearing the S on his chest. The Tallmadge Amendment said, Missouri should join the Union as a free state. Wait a minute. It's not much of a compromise or an agreement. He's just saying it should be on one side, okay? If that were to happen, the scale in the Senate and the House would still be out of balance. And so what we end up with is a deadlock. Congress is deadlocked over the issue of slavery in Missouri, and it would remain that way until 1820. Deadlock means they can't have any movement, they can't make a decision, the votes are too close. So let's take a look over at the US Senate, okay? In 1819, this is the balance, 11 to 11. The United States Senate would be split evenly between slave states and free states before Missouri is added. And in the House of Representatives, it's fairly close as well, 91 to 79. The U.S. House is tipped in favor of the free states. So where does Missouri go? All right, this is what the map looked like. The purple here, those are the slave states. The green up here, those are the free states. And out here is territory that is unorganized. It does not have slave or free. They're not even states yet, okay? So, the Missouri Compromise. All right, so some Southerners, they were upset with this topic. They were upset that Missouri might become a free state and upset the scale even further, and they start to threaten secession. Secession means to break away. It means that these purple states would become their own country. That's what secession is. And they start threatening a civil war. Thomas Cobb of Georgia, he says, if you persist, the Union will be dissolved. You've kindled a fire which a sea of blood can only extinguish. Sounds like war to me. That sounds violent. James Tallmadge of the Tallmadge Amendment, he's from New York, he said, if disunion, breaking up of the Union, must take place, let it be so. If civil war must come, I can only say, bring it on. Well, he says, let it come, but you get the idea, okay? So that shows you how angry both sides are over this issue. All right, so James Tallmadge, remember him? The S on this chest? Missouri should join as a free state? No, that didn't really work. Henry Clay comes into the rescue. And Henry Clay says, Missouri should join the Union as a slave state. Huh. But let's create another state to tip the scale even again? Maine. Let's make Maine a state and make it a free state. And then we'll draw a line between the slave and free, so we have a division between where slavery exists and doesn't exist. All right? He also says compromises are as cool as the other side of the pillow. So here's how the Missouri Compromise actually looks. Okay? First, Maine becomes a free state from 11 to 12. Missouri becomes a slave state from 11 to 12. The scale stays balanced, and the Senate stays in balance. They're going to draw a line called the 3630 line. It's an imaginary line of latitude across the country and actually around the whole world that's going to show the border between slave and free forever. In the Louisiana Territory, anything north of that line will be free, and anything south of that line will be open to slavery. All right, so here is the Missouri Compromise line. All right, Missouri, slave state, Maine, free state, balanced, 12 to 12, and anything new north of the Missouri Compromise line, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, would be free. Anything south of it can decide for itself. That is the Missouri Compromise, but it unravels. Because abolitionists are those people who try to end slavery. They hate slavery, they want it ended. Abolitionists continue to petition Congress to end slavery. Abolitionists also attack slavery in books, and newspapers, and public meetings, and they try to really stir up aggression and anger against slavery. Okay, but then something else happens. Another state. By 1849, we had the gold rush, right? There's all kinds of people rushing out to California. There was now enough people in California for it to become a state, and California wants to become a free state. Well, the South rejects this. They say, there's going to be more free states than slave states. This is unfair, and the Senate's going to be tipped again. See, without California, by this time, it was now 15 to 15. And Southerners again talk of secession. All right, and we end up with a deadlock once again. Congress is deadlocked over the issue of California's application of becoming a free state. If the scale tips in balance of the free states in the Senate and in the House, then you could imagine that slavery might be abolished, which is good for America. It's good for slaves, and it's good for really the people that are alive during that time, and it's good for us today. But it becomes deadlocked over the issue of whether California should become a slave state or a free state. All right, we're going to pause there. We'll get back to this, finding out more events that kept the nation together and pulled the nation further apart as we lead up to the Civil War. All right, that's all for now. See you.